Recording the meeting in the cloud. Thank you all very much for being here today. You have joined the exchange, which is actually called the 360-degree volunteer engagement idea exchange. And that is just too long a title. So thankfully, some people said, why not the exchange? And that's what we've been now for 4 years. The topic of today, and we're not going to spend much time on introductions of materials here, it is best practices and ensuring effective outreach to all volunteers. And I think it's, and hope it's a topic that people have a lot of suggestions on, and how do we reach out to people and make sure that they feel like they belong when they come and there's something for them to do. And it's important for them as well as it is for us. So without any further considerations, we'll start with Ellen's question for today. Ellen, it's your floor.
Hello, everyone. Ooh, we have, not ooh, but ooh, we had great attendance here. That's great, cool. So, and speaking of communications, the question to get us all thinking and started is, what do you do for outreach to your volunteers, or volunteers to volunteer, peer-to-peer? Do you use email? Do you use something different? What has been successful for you? And I think more importantly for me usually is, what do volunteers prefer? What do they like as far as getting their communication? So open to all your ideas.
And I may not have made that clear at the beginning, but this is a forum for volunteers and staff, and all people's comments and ideas and suggestions are just amazingly helpful. So anything you think of, whether you've done it before or tried it, but just think it might be something you want to try, or that you're accomplishing in your state or have heard about, feel free. You're just come off mute and please just, this is
Deborah,
an open forum.
Amber, go for it, Amber.
Yeah.
I'll just share that I obviously use email in this century, and do a lot of texting with different volunteers who prefer texting. We have a volunteer Facebook group that we encourage all Virginia volunteers to be a part of, and they can post information. And I think Mary Clark sometimes shares information. So we do have honorees from other states who have joined our Facebook page. That's one tool that we use.
I have a weird question. Who set up your Facebook page?
I set it up like 10 years ago.
Oh, you set it up.
And it wasn't used that much, but then during the pandemic, we started using it more and more.
So is it attached to your name, like as a personal account, and then you set it up for?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay, no, I'm dead. You don't have to share if you don't want to.
It was 10 years ago.
Yeah, there you go, 10 years. Who's on the, Christina, Will, what's the protocol for that at this point in time, if we're thinking about setting up a volunteer Facebook page?
I will defer to Will on that one. Will, are you with us? And if
Or
not, then
anyone
I
else.
will loop back on that with everyone and
Okay.
find out. But just because I don't have the answer right this
I'm being
second.
selfishly curious.
No problem. I will loop back.
I'll just also share, because I don't know why Jessie shared what she put in the chat box, the statewide volunteer communications, which she does a fabulous job of putting something out monthly. But she's also really good, and I so appreciate the chatter group that she contributes a lot through our Virginia chatter group. And I'm trying to be better about contributing to it. But I look at I look at the Daily Digest.
I'll also just do a plug for the chatter groups. What I love about them is they're searchable. So you can go back and find things that I posted a long time ago, and you don't have to save it all in your email. Or if a volunteer joins a team after the email went out, they still have access to that information. So I'm a big fan of the chatter groups.
Does anyone work with volunteers, or are there volunteers on that are part of a communications team, or make up any part of even like working with Hub Dialer or working with staff on communications with other volunteers?
We have a volunteer portal champion who helps with reaching out to volunteers on our prospect report. So not so much ongoing communications with current volunteers, but she's taken over kind of sending initial emails and scheduling initial conversations with our prospective volunteers. And she's been fabulous. So.
Yeah, we've used Hub Dialer for through the pandemic a few times for connecting with volunteers we've not heard from in a while. And then the Hub Dialer volunteers, they're so into it. They are great at following up then with people that need more information or that they've connected with through there as well.
And Ellen, just to loop back on your
Agreed.
question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Christina.
Sorry. Just to loop back, I was able to quickly, if it's a closed Facebook group, you're good to go. There's not restrictions on it.
Thank
If
you.
it's public, then that's Tim Lockwood's area, and there would probably be a few more restrictions. But if it's a closed group to just ARP volunteers, it's okay.
And then staff can set it up under their own name. And
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I would just add, hi, this is Hillary from Georgia.
Hey,
We
Hillary.
also used Hub Dialer to do special calls of like wellness check-ins, but it was just to say hello. So we started doing it on Valentine's Day, where we would call all of the volunteers and just say Happy Valentine's Day. And it was just a really, really positive thing. You don't want anything? Nope, we're just calling to spread some love. And then we do another one, so that's called Spreading the Love. And then in the summertime, we do Spreading the Sunshine. Just call and say we're hoping you have a safe summer and just want to spread some sunshine. So just a nice way to have our Hub Dialers just call all the volunteers.
Anyone else? All right, I'm gonna do something off the record because that's how I do things.
Hello.
Can I take a small poll and see how many people, either staff or volunteers, if you're a volunteer, if you're do you receive a newsletter that comes from the volunteer portal that you know of? And if you're staff, do you use the volunteer portal for the newsletter? Just curious, just taking a small informal poll. Raise a hands or reaction button.
Looks.
And if you're a
like
volunteer, that you may not know exactly where it's coming from because sometimes they look a lot alike. That's a decent amount. Thank you. Somebody was wanting to say something and I missed you, who that was.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Mabel, sure, yes.
Yes.
Yes, this is Mabel Blackchip Hale. I'm representing both Arizona and New Mexico, and I am a Native American Navajo from Window Rock, Arizona. And I've been with the volunteers for over 25 years now. And I've been working directly with the Native American Student and Outreach for a number of years. And the only way I do outreach is going out to the senior centers. And like I said, both in Arizona and New Mexico. And because of the pandemic and since it started, I have not been engaged with any activities because I lost 15 of my relatives to COVID, and I am really unsure whether if I really want to mingle with the public anymore. So it's like more or less like staying at home. I have, like I said, I have not gone to any meetings, nothing so far up to date. And I went out to because the Indian reservations is very vast, especially with the Navajos. The lack of communication, the broadband services is very poor. We have very little internet services. I've reached out to San Carlos and White Mountain Apaches in Arizona, Hopis. There's other natives back down, like all the way down to Tucson. And then, of course, in New Mexico, mostly the Pueblos from Taos to Las Cruces. And I really would like to go back over there, but I don't know if I really should start traveling again. And that's a question that I ask myself every day. I enjoyed being a volunteer for a number of years, but with this, everything going on, I just like started laying low because it's just, for me, it's just really a scary situation that I am in. And over and over, I tell myself that it's going to be okay. But that's when the travel is coming up, then I start to panic. The only email that I do is with the state offices, both Arizona and New Mexico, and a couple of volunteers and the New Mexico Indian Council on Aging. That's about it.
It sounds like you're still able to get communications anyway, which is good.
Yeah, I do, even though I live in a very rural area. I have internet, but not all the time. I can't get on Zoom because just when I get on, it turns off itself. And so it's better that I just go by just the telephone calls. All of my meetings are my telephone calls, but I'm able to get into meetings. That's what I wanted to tell about myself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it. We're glad you're still able to be connected somehow. Robert, do you have your hand raised or is that from previous?
Sorry, previous.
Oh, okay. Anyone else on communication that's working for you or working receiving it?
Christina just put something in the chat that I think, Christina, why don't you explain what you just did?
Well, I just know Ellen asked before about the volunteer portal email process, and I there's a guide. It's on the volunteer portal, but if you want it directly sent to you for staff, I can shoot that over, or volunteer portal champions. But yeah, so just shoot me a message, and I can get that over to you.
Jesse's a fan.
Right.
It is a great asset.
We have fans.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ellen.
You got it.
Dr. Mary, it's your turn.
Hello, everyone. And first, I want to just say to Mabel, thank you so much for sharing your story and for all the work that you've done in Arizona and New Mexico. I can feel the burden of all the work that you've done and your desire to continue to do that work. And I understand the struggle that you're feeling because you know that there are people who benefited so much from the outreach that you did. So I just want you to know that we appreciate all that you've done. I honor how you're feeling right now, being a little vulnerable, and especially after losing so many loved ones. So just know that we hear you and we appreciate you. And I do hope that there is some resolution to the broadband challenges that many rural areas face, because it's not fair. We know that there's people out there in those areas that benefit from the outreach that we do and the services that are provided, and especially like people like Mabel. So I just want to give a big old virtual hug to Mabel and a hand of support for all the work that she has done. And those of you like Mabel who are doing that work that's unseen, but it's so important. So thank you all. And Mabel, you're getting a lot of hearts. I see you're on the phone, so I know you probably can't see that, but you're getting hearts and hugs and acknowledgement. So just know that we're all wrapping our arms around you. So my question is, how do you make certain that all volunteers receive the same message during the year? And especially after what Mabel has shared with us, we know that technology is not fair and equitable. So what are you doing in your areas to make sure that volunteers not only receive the message, but receive the same message? That's part one. And is there a best practice that you can share when a volunteer must relate to more than one staff member? So 2 or 3 bosses, how do volunteers handle that? And how do you communicate with your volunteers? And I see, Jackie, you had your hand up for a minute, and I want to acknowledge your hand.
Thank you very much, Jackie Cooper with New Mexico. And I want to sort of follow on what you were saying to Mabel. I know Mabel quite well, and she is a fabulous worker and thinks nothing of driving those enormous distances across the res to get to people, to senior centers. And she does deserve the praise and the hearts. She's been a real trooper over the years. So, but the other comment I wanted to make is that I think with recruiting right now, the challenges that we're dealing with sort of coming out of COVID, I've done what I've done in the past. I've gone back to my resources to reread things, and I picked up The New Breed again. And chapter 2 in The New Breed is recruiting the new breed of volunteers. And there's some really good information in there about what to do and definitely what not to do in terms of trying to recruit folks. So it's a very good reference. And there's one example in here that talks about a man who is obviously really good for something, and they're trying to recruit him. And when they ask him why he didn't volunteer, his response says, well, if you wanted me, why didn't you ask? And what he's saying is, I don't volunteer, but I will work with you. And that's on page 41 of The New Breed. So just take note, folks. It's still a good reference.
Thank you, Jackie. And I think, as we are kind of re-emerging into the world, some of those references and some of those resources that we had before, it's good to revisit those. So I appreciate you for reminding us that we do have a wonderful resource that many of us have. And I think I have a couple copies on my shelf. Anyone else want to share about how you deliver the same message to your volunteers, or best practices to share with volunteers who must relate to more than one staff member? I know that there's some ideas out there, some good ones.
Well, I'll say, one of the reasons that when I do statewide emails, that I only do them once a month is because my hope is that staff partners are communicating regularly with their teams. And so I'm trying to keep that monthly email as short and sweet as I possibly can, but still make sure volunteers have the information they need, and try not to spam their inboxes with too many emails. So I think it's kind of trying to find that balance of making sure we're communicating clearly and everybody's got the information that they need. And sometimes you need to tell folks the same thing 3 different times before they they hear it, but also not overwhelming people with too many emails. I use the volunteer portal email system and I like it a lot, but I try to design my emails to look pretty simple, to not look like some of the other emails that they're getting from AARP, so that, you know, it looks like it comes from me and you know it's a little bit different and it's volunteer specific announcements.
Thanks, Jessie. Megan?
Hello. I think, like Jessie, I do a monthly volunteer email that is, I think it should supplement what volunteers are getting from other staff members. And then our staff who manage our our fraud and advocacy teams, they also receive like a weekly or monthly email as well. But I think in terms of how to kind of keep track of who's working with who, because we have a lot of volunteers who work with multiple staff, we just try to copy each other and keep everybody in the loop if there's a volunteer who's working on a couple of different projects, or we all have weekly staff meetings. And so that also is a good opportunity just to always, you know, have having a standard thing on the agenda to talk about volunteers, I think is really helpful.
Thanks, Megan. Antoine from California. And I know that because you've attended so many of our sessions, and I always appreciate what you have to say. And I'm going to use this opportunity to say, Antoine from California, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. So of course, you know, we in California have to be extra, right? So it can't be as simple as, you know, just reach out to one person, because you know, we have different staff working with different groups of volunteers at different times, whether it's a lobby day or just a general virtual meeting with all statewide volunteers. But we did have to create a protocols document for communications. And that's just because sometimes volunteers would respond to a policy book email saying, we would love to get your comments about the policy book. And they would ask a California specific question about their volunteer role and assignment. And so instead of that happening and lessening the frustration with volunteers kind of having to navigate this big circle to come back to California with their state specific question, we did create some protocols to be able to help volunteers understand, you know, every volunteer has a staff partner. And sometimes there are multiple partners that they have, depending on if a volunteer has more than one assignment. And so we always ask them to start with their staff partner first, your specific staff partner to your volunteer role. So if you're a district liaison volunteer, that's a very specific person that you're going to be working with. But if you're a district liaison volunteer that also happens to do education DIY workshops and is part of an events team, you know, we still want you to start with, you know, one staff partner, because sometimes we've had instances with two where volunteers may reach out to 2 or 3 people trying to get an answer for something. So we had to create this protocol document to help them help the volunteers become less frustrated with trying to navigate our processes and our systems, while at the same time giving them some guidance on who their actual staff partner is. There's a lot of different doors we have in California. We try to make sure if a person comes in whatever door, they're going to get to the right person. But we try to kind of guide people to that person that they're working with most often. And most of the time the volunteers know, but every now and then we do get that individual who hasn't heard anything in 2 hours. And so they go to the next person. So we just try to kind of guide everybody back to one individual. We use the email system, the Salesforce Marketing Cloud part of the portal as well for newsletters and e-blasts and things like that to those volunteers. But we also use, because we know not all the volunteers have logged into the portal still, I used to have hair. So once I realized that they weren't logging in, I started pulling it out. No, I just, so we also send out an email to volunteers who haven't logged in yet periodically to say, hey, don't forget, you're missing out on some stuff. You got to log into the portal to get everything that you should be getting. So it's a good amount of stuff, but we just try to close all the back doors we can to make sure nobody slips out, while still kind of helping people navigate our systems, because we know how our systems can be sometimes to some internal and external folks. So we just try to fluff it up a little bit.
Thank you, Antoine. And I know that you said that California likes to be extra, but we appreciate all that extra knowledge that you shared with us. And I'm sure that there's some tips that you provided that somebody else will use. So thank you for being extra. Anyone else? And let me add a couple of other thoughts. And some of you have kind of alluded to that. Do you periodically assess the effectiveness of messages to volunteers? And I think Jesse said something about not wanting to overwhelm or inundate volunteers, which is kind of that self-assessment that I know many of you do, because we all get bombarded with emails. Or have you developed a tool to use to determine whether or not your outreach is effective? Antoine, you have something else you want to add? No. Okay. I saw in the chat something about Georgia likes to be extra too. And I participated in many of Georgia's events because they are extra, and they are extra fun and extra engaging. So Hillary, you want to say something else about Georgia's extraness? We'd love to hear you.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you. Yeah, similar to what Antoine was saying, we do have staff leaders as well, but then we also have them broken into different areas. So we try to touch them, and I tell people touch them as many times as you can, because that keeps them engaged. I am, love to say it and proud to say it, old school and love writing thank you cards. So that is one thing that they love to do. I mean, we do a monthly birthday email to all of our volunteers for the month. So that is something that we do, pull the dates, and that comes out from our state director. All of our staff partners, they do handwrite cards to their volunteers on their teams. Everyone still loves to get the little personal note as much as you can. So I would just say that is something that I still find to be the most rewarding part of receiving communications.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know I too enjoy those personal handwritten notes that I get from the Disrupt Aging team. They say thank you to us, and just other thank yous from the Office of Volunteer Engagement. So those kind of touches do make a big difference in communicating with volunteers, and especially those who are not connected to technology. Amber?
Oh, this just sparked, I have to say this because it sparked something in me. I just want to share this with my colleagues mainly. We have the gift cards that we can have sent to volunteers. And I had a volunteer who received one, not from me, but from a partner at the national office. And she emailed me and thought it was a fraud. Why? Because it came directly from the company that sends the cards, not with a handwritten note, nothing personal about it, and was asking, why did she get this $25 gift card? And so my point in sharing this is I really think that, one, if you're going to send the gift card, take time to write a note and tell them why they're getting it. That's all.
That's a great suggestion. Yes. Great suggestion. And because we do have so much fraud fighter conversations across, the enterprise, it makes sense that someone would question that, and that personal touch makes all the difference in the world. I see Ellen has put a question in chat. Does OVE ask anything about preferred communication that survey that goes out? And can't remember. I know that we can set preferences, and she sends cards and small gifts like crazy. People love snail mail still. And we also put a question on our volunteer survey that goes out statewide about preferred communication. So thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else? Kimba says, if you have an in-person event, it's also nice to share group photos with the attendees as a thank you. That is nice, whether you can do it right there in person, which I know a lot of our Michigan events, we have that where we take photos, and by the end of the event, you can walk over to the table and there your photo is in a nice frame and everybody gets to take that home. So that is a nice touch. Or even if you do the old fashioned, you know, do your digital camera, and when you get home, send them to your local Walgreens or Walmart to get them processed, and write a little hand note and send them out to volunteers. That's another way to personalize those communications. And before I turn it over to Megan for her question, the last thing that Christina said in the chat is the volunteer opinion survey should be hitting mailboxes within the next week. So keep an eye out for it and encourage your volunteer colleagues or volunteer teams to fill it out because people are listening. Hillary, you want to say one more thing?
Well, I just want to ask Christina, by any chance, do we have any verbiage to go with that? I would love to, help promote that to our volunteers and encourage them to fill that out. So if there's something you can send to us, we'd love to help, encourage everyone to fill it out.
Yeah, let me loop back with you on that, Hillary. I can talk to the team and maybe Greer and see if there's anything that we can help provide to make that easier to push out.
And Megan, if you see the note from Jennifer asking if the Minnesota team has the skills assessment without the Minnesota logo that you can share, I'm sure that that's something that you can send to Deborah to put in the portal. And I am going to go on silent so that I can turn it over to my colleague, Megan, to ask the next question.
Megan, you may be on mute.
She may have had to take a call or something because her screen is down. So,
Yeah.
Deborah, you want me to go ahead or do you want to take it?
Oh, okay. Well, we were going to do a little bit of something here. One of the questions that we get a lot, and I think this is probably a great group to find out if there's a suggestion here, and that is people are feeling overwhelmed. There's lots of stuff going on. Is there anything, or I know there's probably something, but what could OVE do to help ease your sense of overwhelmed? Okay, that's what we're trying to figure out. Is there something that we can do? Is there some information that can be provided? What makes it easier for you as a volunteer to do your job, to help? So any suggestions on that? That's what we're looking for now. Okay, I saw Antoine. I can see the smiles on your face when you think of it. You must be thinking right about now about how overwhelmed you are and how many things you've got to get done. Is there something that we could help you do, that OVE could provide in terms of information, anything?
Well, Deborah, since you put me on the spot. No, I chuckled because you asked a question to volunteers. So I just I was gonna, no comment. And I think there is a different perspective that responses that you'll get, of course, from volunteers and staff.
Mhm.
So that's one of the reasons that I chuckled, because I just wanted to kind of hear what some folks will say. But I know just speaking from our perspective, kind of on this side of the country, one of the things that we're always talking to Kathy about too is training, and the kind of the ability to use, which we do a little bit already, use some of the national created training for state specific things, especially around starting to go back into community, back into these events, to have something that's focused on issues that may come up now, around somebody getting in your face because you're actually wearing a mask. How do you handle those types of situations, or how best to engage in our current environment, which is different from pre-pandemic. So that's really focused for volunteers. Yeah,
Okay.
one thing.
Okay. Thank you. That's fair, Antoine. Martin, I believe you had your hand up first, and then Becky, you've got a comment. You're on mute, Martin. Okay, now Martin.
I think for the volunteers, if we get overwhelmed, I'm going to say, is there anything that ARP has, like, a time management type course? And I'm sure we've all taken them throughout our, professional careers and everything like that. But every now and then you sit there, and I know what I'll do is I'll get overwhelmed. I'll say, okay, take a step back. Say, okay, what do I have to do? Prioritize it. What's next? But a lot of that's just, personal things that a volunteer has, or a person has, and they've been taught throughout their careers. So I don't know if AARP has anything like that or not. And I'm not really sure how our AARP partners can help us out. I know if we get that little thank you note every now and then, boy, that's a real, upper, makes us want to work harder for our, as somebody said, the word boss. It only took my AARP partner about 5 years to quit calling her boss. But it's, as far as that goes, it's just like, take a step back, take a deep breath, and say, okay, prioritize what you have to do. And I really think if the people that I've met, if you really become overburdened, I think we can go to them and say, hey, I got too much on my plate, let me drop something. And I don't think anybody's going to say anything to you about that. And that's one of the things, as a volunteer, we are allowed to do that, and sometimes we just don't realize that. So anyway, so that's my comment there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Becky.
Yes, from a volunteer perspective, I think OVE has done a fabulous job on the training aspects and providing resources and information. I'm a Oregon's portal champion, and I get the newsletter, so I try to disseminate the information to our virtual event teams and speaker teams and any other teams in our groups that can benefit from that. And I just want to say kudos, because with all the different training aspects, being social media, Zoom, Fast Track, all of those are just great for our volunteers.
Great. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure the staff that are here will pass that on to other team members as well. Bettina, you are next.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'd like to echo what Becky just said. OVE advisors are absolutely phenomenal in giving us different options, and also an out if there's something that we're a little bit overwhelmed with. And the person that mentioned training, I think is just a great asset to us, in the sense that, we have letting go. We have creating effective teams, which leads are going through and can take back to their respective teams in their states. And sometimes just learning how to let go, or understanding that there is another team member who can help you take some of the load off, and that can carry, you know, an effective team carrying the burden all together, I think is really great. So those trainings are fabulous. And even within my state, the community engagement managers are always there to listen and always reminding us, hey, you don't have to do everything. We want you to know that there are ways to carry some of this burden. So feel free to let us know if anything ever becomes too much. So that is so appreciated. And it's really great. I have no complaints at all.
Okay. Thank you, Bettina. Well, then
Thank you.
Al, your comments, you're next.
Hello, I'm a
Hello.
volunteer in the Philadelphia area of Pennsylvania. And I have noticed throughout my career as a volunteer for many organizations and as a business person, that if you give a busy person something else to do, it will usually get done. However, there comes a time, and I'm reaching it now with my AARP work, that I am contacted about every single thing that AARP does.
Mhm.
And my suggestion is to have your staff person or whoever's sending out the emails, would you be interested in this? Can you do that? How about movies about grown-ups? How about elections? How about voting? How about let's get those drug prices down? How about everything else? Maybe have a spreadsheet or a list of things that volunteers are interested in, and contact those volunteers who have interest in those specific areas.
Some type of a skills assessment, perhaps.
Or at least interest.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for those comments. Hillary, you've got your hand up, hon.
Yeah, one of the things we have worked on this year is really doing a buddy system, especially for our new volunteers coming in, bringing them and really putting them together with a veteran volunteer so that, you know, can kind of guide them through them, how to manage some of the work, how to really get a, you know, a pulse on what we're doing. But in addition to that, with our volunteers, we're asking them to really find co-leaders or co-partners so that they don't have to take on all of it by themselves. So even if they're facilitating a speaker engagement, have someone there's going to be your co-lead as a resource person, whether it's in person or virtual, so they can do the chat monitoring, but that they don't have to feel the entire load on themselves. And it has really been a positive way of bringing people in, also getting people who may not want to be the lead and the speaker, but could be the co-lead to help assist, really having two kind of different levels of bringing people in, but also sharing the load.
Great. And of course, we're modeling that here today. We have co-leads. Dr. Mary Clark is my co-leader for 360, and I couldn't do it without her. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us of that. So Becky, looks like you've got the final comments. You're on mute.
Thank you. I just wanted to chime in on something Bettina said. At the end, she had mentioned the Letting Go series and some other series that the staff and volunteers work together on. Well, Oregon is really short. We have been running short on staff for a long time. And, you know, with COVID, I do the virtual events. So it's a full load and I'm, you know, getting tired. But without a staff, can OVE, what can OVE offer as a temporary medium? And I know I need to speak with our state director, Benthana, because I took Letting Go with her. But I just wanted to chime in and see if I'm missing something besides the training, besides something that she can reach out to very easily so that we can continue to be on top of things and provide volunteers with open opportunities.
Okay.
Yes, we do have a great state director. Bunkno is fabulous. So is our news. Stacy is new. You know, Andrea is great. She's our lobbyist. And I can't speak enough about Megan. So we have got an excellent staff right now. It's just a little short. And Sarah is sorely missed by myself. She used to attend these all the time.
Right.
So kind of
Okay.
filling in for her in some places.
Right. And we're glad to have you. Thank you for being here. And I know that Kathy and Christina are here and they'll be able to probably get back to you with some comments in answer to your question, a little bit more of support. We're running out of time here today. It has been an outstanding group of comments. And what we're going to do, as usual, this meeting has been recorded. We'll post it in our group chatter. And I'm going to try to make sure that some of those hundreds of materials that have already been provided by people are lifted up as we get to particular topics. So, you know, some of the things that we're talking about now, people have provided information on those. So those are going to be lifted up in the chatter so that you can see them and reach out for them. Plus, there are some places, I think, in the group chatter today where people ask for information. We have noted that, we're recorded all of it, and we're going back through to get the answers to your questions. So thank you all very much for coming. Our next meeting is in October. It's October 11th. And it's another best practices meeting, but it relates to planning and how do you get your volunteers to carry through and encourage them and support them. And now that we're going into 2023, I don't know who thought we'd be able to say that. I know I didn't, but so thank you all very much for coming today. I really appreciate it. And hope that you'll have a great rest of the month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.